everybody. Thanks for joining me today for another fun chat with a fellow professional. I am Lana. I'm a career coach with Two Steps Forward Consulting, and I am a career strategist sometimes, and sometimes a coach, and sometimes both, depending on how tough the case is and on the problem that we're trying to solve. And so what I know has its limits. I'm very curious, and I want to know everything that has to do with personal development, not just professional development. And so I'm having these conversations with fellow professionals, with fellow service providers about topics such as soft skills and mentorship and professional image, branding, burnout, all kinds of topics that really are important. So today we have Josh with us, and he is a professional photographer, and we're going to talk at some length today about professional headshots and professional image. So I will let Josh introduce himself now.
Hi everyone, my name is Joshua Wilkin-Perkin, and I'm the owner and lead photographer for JWP Photography. I work here in Toronto, Ontario, and what I try to deliver with my clients is the best image possible, the essence of them, and my business caters to quite a lot of different genres. I do wedding and engagement photography, but what we're talking about today is headshots.
Awesome. So I know Josh, I've known Josh for some time. I know him as a photographer in that very capacity because he took my very first series of headshots when I started my coaching business. And if you've seen those photos before, it's the ones where I'm wearing a dark blue cocktail dress and I'm standing surrounded, you know, there's a path behind me and there's some leaves. And I really, really love those photos. And I know I'm due for something slightly different already, but because of the lockdown, we weren't able to meet up again to have another session. So you have an example of his work right there on my profile. So just take a look at my profile picture on LinkedIn and you'll get the idea of what Josh can do. But back to headshots. So the reason I want to talk about headshots is because no matter how much we try to resist this idea that first impressions are extremely, extremely important and that you should defer your judgment until you get to know somebody later and all that stuff, but this is just not how your brain works. Your brain will make a snap decision based on what you see. And this may mean a new job, this may mean a new collaboration, a new business relationship, who knows what that might mean, but first impressions do absolutely matter. And so there are images of you out there. This is a digital world at this point. There's images of you out there, and the quality of those images obviously matters. So my first question for Josh is, what type of professional, which professionals will benefit from a professional image as opposed to just a very, very nice iPhone 12 selfie? And, you know, what are the benefits of having your headshot done by a professional photographer?
Well, that's a great question. So I would say the main thing is pretty much regardless of profession, I always recommend that everyone have a professional headshot. What's important there is just that you are selling yourself. The effort that you put into a headshot, professional photo, branding, anything like that, depends whatever your profession is, but that image is representing you. And though it may not make or break your employment for a new job if you're interviewing, it's one of those small factors that really adds up when someone's deciding if you're the right candidate. Nowadays, it's very easy to find people. There's so many different sites for people to apply to jobs and for companies to find new hires. So it's these incremental small adjustments that I think can make the difference between you getting the job and not getting the job. And one of the big things that matters is your image. I think if we're talking about the most important job to have a professional image, I would say it's someone who's running their own business and possibly someone who's the face of their business. There are a lot of businesses out there where there is one person who appears as the sole owner, proprietor, or the person who's running it. They're just the face of the business. And in that case, especially, it's very important to have a professional image.
It's just a must at that point, absolutely. But can you make a case for someone who doesn't feel like they really need to?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say that you just graduated from university or even from high school and you're looking for your first job. I think it's really important to first get online. You know, create a LinkedIn account. You might not have social media accounts. I I don't know if you consider LinkedIn to be as social of a social media, but that one it's very important because as I've heard from many jobs that I've worked at, they just tell me straight up, they're like, hey, yeah, we Googled you. And that's just pretty much standard nowadays. People will Google your name when they're looking through the new hires list. And if you have a professional image, that is immediately 1 point in your favor.
Absolutely.
I think in this kind of case, that person is already standing out from the crowd because they're taking their professional development seriously. They're saying that they want to be respected within whatever field they're going into, and they want to stand out. That professional image will make them stand out miles more than someone who took a selfie or even had someone else take a photo, on their cell phone of them.
I think that's a great answer, and me liking this answer has a lot to do with what I do professionally for people as well. There's a lot of things you really don't have to do, but if you do them, think about all of the people who are not going to bother. And then it starts to add up incrementally. You may have that one nice post that you wrote that revealed something about you and how much care you take in completing projects and being professional, taking things seriously, and just being personally responsible for the quality of your work. There may be a blog post that you did. There may be this effort that you take to take up a headshot, professionally produced headshot. There are a lot of things you could do and somebody else is just not going to bother to do. So I strongly recommend that people look into these opportunities. And if it doesn't seem like too much, if it's, by all means, if you're not able to, for some logistical or financial reason, afford it, I understand that. But if your excuse is just that I don't think I feel like it, I think people should reconsider. So in that sense, I agree. There's lots of different low-hanging fruit opportunities for exposure and improving your image. And this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, and there's one thing I just wanted to add to that. It's just, I think a lot of people look at professional images as sort of barrier to entry because the cost associated with it. And the important thing to remember is that there's a lot of photographers out there who are not some established massive corporation that's doing professional headshots for businesses for thousands of dollars. I myself, when I first started doing headshots, I was doing them for $20. I've incrementally increased my prices as my quality has gone up and as my confidence has gone up. But there are a lot of photographers out there. It's easier than ever to get a professional camera these days, and it's easier than ever to learn. Using things like YouTube and online resources like that to get better, to learn lighting and everything like that. So the cost is not as much as you might expect.
That's true. And I found that out from speaking with you a year ago. I thought it would be something completely ridiculous, hundreds of dollars, but it's actually something quite affordable. And it just goes to show that you need to do your research.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before you say no to something, definitely do your research and find out what you're saying no to without
For sure. And keep in mind, it's even if you're spending $100 on a headshot, let's say, in that case, you're not going to get a headshot every month. You're not going to get a headshot every year necessarily. That image, you're investing in yourself because that image is going to be around for a while.
Cool. So walk me through the process. Let's say I am professional. I've never had a headshot before, so I don't know too much about the process. And I decide to book a photographer such as yourself. What would you tell me? What are the logistics?
For sure. So typically what I start with is getting information about the person. So I just have a nice conversation with them, whether by phone, by text, email, whatever, just to figure out first, what area are they working in? How long have they been working in that field? Getting a sense just from talking to them, I get the idea of whether they're a new professional, whether they've been in that industry for a while, whether they've had a professional headshot before even. And going from there, I typically try to figure out, okay, is it going to be a very professional headshot or is it going to be a little more casual? And this just depends on the field. So if I'm working with someone, and I've worked with plenty of people in the tech industry, this is a field that is known for being a little more casual, right? These people, you might have seen pictures of people on an article, wearing sweatpants at work or something crazy like that. Now, I'm not going to take a professional photo of someone in sweatpants because, that does not send the right image. But, this kind of photo might require a nice t-shirt, for instance. And this is quite stark contrast to someone who's maybe working in the business field. You know, someone who's working as an executive who needs to be taken seriously, and they can't have a professional photo wearing just a t-shirt. So figuring out the field that the person's working in, that helps me establish what wardrobe. And I typically recommend that they bring at least a couple options, because some people might love this one shirt that they have, but then they take photos in it and they realize, oh, it actually looks really bad on camera. Or, you know, they didn't iron it that day, so it's wrinkly, but it's a good thing we have a backup. So it's always good to do that. And one of the most important things I find is also the location. So are we showing the location like we did in Lana's photo? And in that case, it's more outdoor, and that sends a certain message. You know, it's vibrant, it's kind of a personality piece. It's saying, you know, I like to be outdoors, but also it's a little more outgoing. Whereas someone who's a bit more of a business professional, who's a bit more serious, I'm going to suggest that they use a solid colored backdrop. So in my case, I have a few options that I can bring to the table. And in that case, they can choose between the different colors, and we figure out, you know, how are we going to pose you in front of these backgrounds? That's the next part. And posing is something that I've figured out over time. You know, many photographers figure out what works for them and also what they like to have as their style. But I like to talk to my clients about that. You know, if they want to be taken a lot more seriously, then I'm going to maybe pull back the smile a little bit. Sometimes it might just be a completely serious face, no smile at all. And the posing, you know, it's up to your discretion as a photographer, but as a client, I think it's always important that, you know, they look their best. So I'm always working the angles as I can to make them look their best, and, you know, working with my lighting. So if I'm shooting outdoors, then I'm always working to make sure there's no direct light, you know, to make sure that the diffuse light looks good on their face. There's no, you know, harsh shadows under the eyes or under the chin, anything like that. And, you know, just posing them through the process. I'm always talking to my clients to make sure they're comfortable in the process, because a lot of people are not comfortable in front of the camera. That's pretty standard.
I wasn't. I didn't know what to do with my body or my hands. So I was very grateful that you suggested something very specific that I could try. I think you gave me a couple of rotation angles and what to do with my hands, and that really helped. And I don't think I'd be as nervous or concerned at the next session, but at the first one, I don't know what it was, but it took me by surprise. All of a sudden it was real, and here we were taking these photos.
Yeah, for
even
sure.
though there were plenty of photos. I got back a ton of photos to choose from. I really had nothing to be concerned about, but it was like being on the spot all of a sudden and being kind of just unfamiliar with.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the issues. As soon as you're behind a big camera lens, everyone gets a little nervous. I think most people aren't used to that. You'd have to be in the film industry or something like that, where you're constantly in front of a camera to be used to that. So the general public are not used to that and are uncomfortable in front of a camera. So I do my best to keep talking, keep my client, you know, happy and comfortable during the process. And so let me just continue walking through the process. So we've already established, you know, figuring out where we want to shoot, if we're going to use a backdrop or not, you know, wardrobe, what we're going to be wearing, posing. And from there, I basically walk them through the, you know, the following steps. So we've already gotten our pictures. You know, I'm going to be showing the client the photos, you know, all through the process so that they can see how they're looking. They can make micro adjustments, you know, in their smile and their pose. Maybe their head's a little too tilted this way or something like that. So we've taken all the photos. They like a bunch. What I'm going to do from there is email them a link, and in that link, they'll have the gallery to look through. Typically, I'll reduce this gallery down, remove any images that have blinking or anything like that that definitely would not pass, and I'll let the client choose 1 or 2 images. I try to keep it low, because if you have 5 images, then you're going to get to the point where you're going to upload your picture to LinkedIn, and now you don't know which of your 5 you like best. So it's always good to narrow it down, and I help with that process too. I can say, you know, this one and this one's definitely better because you look more professional but calm. This one, there's like that slight hint of like a laugh in a smile or something like that. It looks kind of uncomfortable. So I'll be walking my client through that process. And then once we've chosen the images, then I send them the full resolution images, or they can pick them up, and we go on our way. I typically recommend also the quality and the sizing, the resolution for different sites, because certain sites use, you know, they might say max 3 megabytes for this. So I can optimize the image to look best on that site. If it's a circle like LinkedIn, I think uses, or a square, then I'm going to format the image differently for that.
Very cool. I've been through this process myself, and I really actually enjoyed it. It was very calming to be working with somebody that had the process figured out and just be told what the next step is, and including the actual photo shoot itself. I think I ended up bringing a couple of outfits. I didn't even use all the outfits. It was bloody hot that day, so just
Yeah, it sure was.
changing, and I would have, this was just the beginning of the lockdown. We did it at the Brickworks. Brickworks was closed, so you couldn't get access even to the common spaces or the washroom to change. And I just stayed in one outfit just because I don't think I could have pulled it off easily at that point.
Probably not, but that outfit worked out, and those images look great.
It was really fun, and it turned out really well, and I'm very grateful that well, first of all, to you for being just an immaculate professional and providing like excellent service, but also to myself for actually deciding to do it, because I wanted to do it for so long. I just never really felt comfortable doing it. And then once I did it, it actually really helped me. Everybody is posting, like as an entrepreneur, everybody's posting images. You're selling yourself, you're branding yourself. Yeah. You have to show yourself constantly. And at first I didn't have any images until I kind of discovered that all it takes is a selfie. But there were still situations where you could only get away with a professional image. You couldn't really do like a fun little selfie. That's more like social media everyday thing. Which kind of brings me to like the very last question I wanted to ask. Would you have a different approach when working with an entrepreneur? Somebody whose brand is themselves? I know you already said that they're in front of the camera, so they do need to have images. How do you bring out their personality that they're probably selling themselves versus a professional who may or may not be revealing that personality? They may or may not want to be very much outgoing in themselves when they feel like this has to be a professional image.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think what's really important is that first conversation that I have with people. So figuring out what industry do you work in and how serious is it? So like I said, for the tech example, this person is going to be a little more casual in their approach. And so I can approach that in the photo shoot. They can be smiling, and that smile can be a little bigger. You'd be surprised how small the micro adjustments can be between a smile that looks like you're laughing versus a smile that's kind of calm and serious.
Yeah,
and yeah, exactly. So you can be a little more fun in that case. Like you mentioned, an entrepreneur. So someone like one of us who's running their own business, that person, it's really important for me to understand the personality of that person. That's why I'm just constantly talking throughout the photo shoot, because if I don't know them before the shoot, I want to make sure that I'm getting to know them during the shoot. And a lot of the times the best photos from the shoot will be right near the end. And that's because the person has let their guard down finally, and they've kind of let me in. They've gotten comfortable with the camera and how we're going. And they've just gotten a little more relaxed. It's like you said, it was kind of uncomfortable for you to make the first step to pursue the photo shoot. And that's the case for most people, because most people aren't, they're not ready to be in front of the camera and to just try to look their best in front of the camera, knowing that this image is going to be, the face of their brand or the face of their company, or just all over the internet, like LinkedIn and Facebook and everything. So taking that first step is always difficult. And I think most people first show up at the interview very rigid, and they're very stiff. Sorry, I said interview, I meant the photo shoot. But they show up and they're not ready for, to relax and let me in. And that's why this photo shoot, though it typically, it might take only 10 to 15 minutes to get the right shot. Typically a shoot will go 45 minutes to an hour, and that's just because I'm taking photos throughout the whole time. There's other things to consider. And I'm asking a lot of questions because I want to understand how their job might reflect their personality. How much can they show their personality? And, as a result, how much can I show that in the images?
That's fantastic. I mean, you've given so much good information, and I really wanted to go through the process step by step with you so people understand what's actually involved, because maybe talking about it and knowing what's actually included in this interaction will demystify the process for some people and relax them at least enough to seek out a photographer and maybe even have just an initial talk and consultation about it. If you're still nervous, you're probably going to be nervous throughout it, but if you show up, you will get photos out of it. And this will be your very first photo, that you will be, or one or two photos that you will be using. And then perhaps, maybe a year or two later, a second photo shoot is in order where you feel more comfortable and show more of your personality. So by all means, reach out to photographers, consider getting a professional photo shoot in the first place. And then if you think this is for you, then reach out to a number of people, talk to them, see who you like, and, break that ice, start a conversation with them. So if you guys want to know more about what Josh does, I'm going to include a link to his website and his contact information. So if you really felt a connection and like the way he works, please reach out to him. I personally had a really good time working with Josh, and I will have another session with him when we're allowed to go outside, essentially, when we're allowed to work with people outside of a household. So thank you so much to everyone who decided to join us today and who stayed till the end of this conversation. I hope you learned a ton about headshots, and I hope to see you soon again. If you have any comments, please leave them below. Bye-bye.